Yo, in today's video I'll share 3 of my favorite bicep movements. All of those are amazing for size and they will target the biceps from slightly different angles. I'll only share 3 movements today because I don't think that you need a whole lot for biceps. And all 3 of those movements are S tier biceps exercises. So let's start with the first exercise, the preacher curl. A lot of people find the preacher curl scary because they saw those videos of people tearing their biceps on it. And it's true that the risk of injury is higher on this movement because the biceps are in a more compromised position. But I found that the stimulus is also higher than most biceps movements. And people who do get hurt on these movements are steroid users who have very weak tendons but strong muscles, which makes the risk of injury higher. Or people who overstretch on this movement. So the people that go all the way down on this movement, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But if your tendons feel weird after doing it, you should probably stop and just cut the range of motion short. That doesn't mean to do partials, it actually means to do the normal range of motion. Because the way that the preacher bench is set up is that if you do go all the way down, you'll be overstretching your biceps. You can get that kind of range of motion on a normal bicep curl because the weight will just run into you. And if you just stop at the point where your forearms are parallel to the floor, that will still be a full range of motion. For your biceps at least. You can go lower, but that will recruit only your tendons. And when you reach the point where your forearms are parallel to the floor, that's the point where your biceps will be maximally stretched. So there's no point in going deeper if you find out that it hurts. Now I'll share with you a couple techniques. First of all, try to keep your wrists curled throughout the whole movement. This way you'll ensure that you're not ego lifting by putting on too much weight. You'll also activate the forearms and you'll also activate the biceps better. You can use either dumbbells or an easy bar. But if you do use an easy bar, try to have a closer grip. Both of them have their advantages and disadvantages. Try both of them out and see which one you like the best. If you don't have a preacher bench, you can also use an incline bench. But pay attention to the angle of it, because you'll have to modify the range of motion accordingly. But this movement overall is one of the greatest movements for biceps. It's a very stable lift, I'd argue the most stable lift for biceps. You're completely isolating biceps because you can move your elbows up or your body that much. And it's actually pretty easy to grind it once you get close to failure. Unlike most other biceps exercises. Now, even though this is a very strict bicep movement, you can still cheat it. Don't lift the butt of the bench unless you're trying to re-rack. And don't move your body with the weight. Try to keep stable. The only thing that should be moving is your arms. You can use a rep range of 6 to 10, since the movement can be quite safe if you apply the techniques that I mentioned before. Or you can use an 8 to 12. The second exercise is the standing barbell curl. I showed you a movement that isolates the biceps, that is very strict, and now I'll show you a movement where you can use more weight and you can be a little more loose with your form. Now that doesn't mean, however, that you can cheat. I'm still against the idea of swinging the weight. But you can have a slight movement in your body to make the strength curve smoother. Using a cyborg form will be worse for this. You can get away with a little body English if you wanna call it that. But this is another very great movement. It's a time-tested movement. It's not necessarily as good as isolating the biceps as the preacher curl, but this can be the movement that helps you progress on the preacher curl, let's say. I like to call it a compound movement, even though it's not. But to me, a standing barbell curl is like your bench to your biceps. It's like your strength work, where you can use lower reps and higher weight. And now I'll give you a couple of techniques as well. Like I said before, don't swing your body, unless you want to squeeze a couple more reps at the end. But don't treat those as actual reps, because they're not. You can lift your elbows up, unlike some people say, it's still a function of the biceps. And this is something that you can do on a preacher curl, for example. You can use either a straight bar or an easy bar. But don't get bullied into using the easy bar. The straight bar has its own benefits, and if you don't feel pain from using it, then use it. Just don't do them in a squat rack if your gym is busy. And because I like to categorize this movement as a strength movement, I like to use a lower rep range, so a 5 to 8 or a 6 to 10. You can use things like pause reps as well on this, that can help you out a lot. You can even try experimenting with back off sets by using a 4 to 8 on your first set and then a 6 to 10 on your other sets by taking some weight off. Overall, it's an amazing movement to get both strong and big biceps. Plus, it's like the coolest bicep exercise you can do. Especially once you're able to rep one plate with good form. That will get you the respect of everybody in the gym. Now the third movement will be for the brachialis, and this one will be a hammer curl. So instead of grabbing the dumbbell from the middle, you grab it from the top, right where it connects to the plate, so that you engage your biceps and your forearms. And to engage the forearms even more, you flex the wrist up, just like the preacher curl, but obviously with a hammer curl grip. You can do them outside the body or you can do them inside the body, with one arm at a time. This one is called the pinwheel curl. Some will prefer the first variation, just curling the weight up, and some will prefer the other variation, curling the weight across the body. but both of them do pretty much the same thing, so pick which one you like best. On this movement, it's not necessary to go all the way up. You can lift your elbow up if you want, but you don't have to, and you can do partials as you approach failure. Now a few techniques for this lift. Again, don't swing your body, just like any other biceps exercise, and try to keep it as strict as possible. Though with the pinwheel curl, you can get away with a little bit of cheating, since it's one arm at a time and you can control it better, but always lower it under control. Another thing that you can do, you can use straps on this movement, if you find out that your grip fails. And straps can also help your arms lock in better. The rep range for this I'll go a little higher, 8 to 12 or 10 to 15. So yeah, those were the exercises. As you can see, nothing too crazy. These exercises are not exotic, it's not a crazy cable curl exercise or something like that. They're just great time-tested movements that will help you get big biceps. And if you stick to them and apply progressive overload, your biceps will grow, I promise you that. All of those movements are amazing, just stick to them and focus on progression. You don't need a lot for biceps, but intensity and training frequency are very important. Even training them 3 times a week, using one of those variations every time you train your biceps. That will take you far. It does take a while to build your biceps because they're such a small muscle group, but you'll see that focusing on a few good movements and getting brutally strong at them is all you need for bicep growth. It's not rocket science. And if you wanna see how I utilize progressive overload using these rep ranges in this video, check out my rep range video.